The Disney Renaissance. You most likely have heard of this term before. It's the period during the 1990 decade when Disney Animation was releasing some of their most acclaimed and successful animated features, including Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, Hercules, Mulan, and more. It was a moment that is considered to be one of the greatest comeback stories in Hollywood. But how did this era come to be? What initiated this time that made Disney a household name for a new generation? Well, we'll have to step back when they were at their weakest. Ever since Walt Disney passed away, the whole company was in the worst shape that it had ever been. Even with its animation studio, the movies they were making were generally fine, but they didn't have that same magic that Walt gave to his pictures, thus not connecting with its audiences as strong as they used to. In the 1980s, the studio was completely taken over by a new generation of animators, and as they were eagerly creating the next Disney animated films, their first attempt started them at rock bottom. But as the decade was getting closer to its end, Disney was gradually becoming more popular. As their later films were getting better, like The Great Mouse Detective and Oliver and Company, and the success of Who Framed Roger Rabbit brought animation back in the spotlight. This all led to the pinnacle moment on November 17th, 1989.
For over 50 years, Walt Disney has turned classic stories into classic animated motion pictures. Now the tradition continues as one of the world's greatest stories becomes the newest Disney motion picture classic.
The Little Mermaid was a return to Disney's classic formula. It was an animated musical based on the fairy tale of the same name by Hans Christian Andersen. And like the princesses before Ariel, like Snow White and Cinderella, it not only became the big hit that the studio needed, but it was also the movie that launched the new era for Disney animation that brought them back in their prime since the days of Walt Disney. But why was this the movie that sparked the Disney Renaissance? As we dive under the sea to look into this, will we discover what makes this feature sing so beautifully? Or did this turn out to be a poor unfortunate soul this whole time? Let's find out. The story. In this adaptation of The Little Mermaid, the story is split into two parts. The first is about a mermaid who is curious about the surface world, despite her father forbidding her from leaving the water. But after she falls in love with a human prince that she rescued, her desire to live on land grows stronger while the tension between her and her dad becomes more tense. As for the second, it turns the movie into a rom-com where the mermaid gets her wish to become human and be with the man of her dreams. But she only has a limited amount of time to have him fall in love with her, and has to do so without her voice.
My voice?
You've got it, sweet cakes. No more talking, singing, zip.
Of course, as a Disney film, the story deviates from the Hans Christian Andersen tale in order to incorporate that Disney-style storytelling that's more cheerful and crowd-pleasing. I mean, I get it, because, let's be honest, the movie wouldn't hit the same way if it ends with Eric getting hitched with another woman, which makes Ariel sad and then becomes... But back to the movie itself, I might as well start by getting my criticisms out of the way because there are some flaws that have to be addressed. And what is probably my biggest is the romance between Ariel and Eric. In a way, it's very much one-sided where we mostly get the mermaid's perspective of why she's in love. And when they do have their moment together, the film doesn't spend time to see them developing a genuine connection. It's as if the second half of the picture is meant to be its own entire movie, but had to be condensed to also fit the plot of how the mermaid turned into a human with no voice. As a result, it frames the love story as a means to have Ariel live happily on land instead of presenting that these two are meant for each other. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for saying this, but this is the one element I find that the 2023 remake does better than the original. It justifies the love as a reason for Ariel to leave her home. But don't worry, I do believe that the animated film does better at everything else. Besides, while the remake isn't terrible, it is still responsible for giving us. However, while the story itself can be a bit questionable, the movie put in a lot of energy onto the storytelling. And to do that, it prioritizes its emotional core so that Ariel's mood resonates with the audience. I'll admit that this doesn't always work to make itself entirely captivating. It had to sacrifice some of its own subtlety to frequently explain everything that's going on, and the more lighthearted scenes that display the humor can get juvenile. Not to say that it's bad, and I'll say that the comedy is cute at best, but it's clear that it's not its best suit, especially when it takes time away from the story just to have its moment to be a cartoon. Then again, even with a few setbacks, it does work more so than not. When the scenes hit, they are able to leave a strong impact to show how important the moments are and what they mean to the characters. It's a key component to grabbing the viewer's attention by presenting everything in a bold way. It highlights Ariel's perspective of wanting to experience the human world and to be in love with Eric, capturing why they mean so much to her to the point that she risks everything to achieve that desire. It makes her passion the driving force of the picture, which is a big part to why people can get so invested in wanting to see the mermaid live her dream.
I don't see how a world that makes such wonderful things could be bad.
The way I see the story is a lot like how Triton sees Ariel. It has its own set of problems, and it may have the wrong understanding of romance, but you know it means well, and you wouldn't want to change it because the good it gives does outweigh the bad. And that's why it's hard not to love it. The animation. There is another reason why The Little Mermaid is considered a landmark film for Disney. This is noted as their final feature that used hand-painted cells before they fully transitioned to the digital method of developing the look of the final film, starting with The Rescuers Down Under. I thought it's worth mentioning because it makes it more admirable to look into the movie's artistry, knowing that it was crafted the traditional way. As a movie that is primarily set underwater, the animation team was tasked with creating a world that is like a more expanded and advanced version of the underwater scene from Pinocchio and the scene with the dancing fish in the Nutcracker Suite segment in Fantasia. What they created not only captured the look of being under the sea, but also how it feels like it. This is thanks in part to the massive work done by the effects. With the way the lighting reflects the water's moving surface and project beams of light in the sea, along with the use of over 1 million bubbles throughout the picture that follows the character's movements, they add the little details needed to sell the illusion to how there is a difference between the scenes that are set on land and in the water.
Well, first, this shark chases. Yeah, and we tried it, but we couldn't, and...
But of course, you can't have the ocean without life inhabiting it, and the movie supplies a wide variety of sea creatures that both play around with their individual designs and add so much color to the picture in order to emulate the beauty of the ocean's ecosystem at its best. I'll even add that this makes it one of Disney's most colorful animated features, and those visuals play a role in making scenes like Under the Sea so memorable.
The top play the hop, the place play the bass, and the sound and sharp, the bass play the brass, the chop play the top, the flute is the Duke of Soul. Yeah.
And then you have the more fantastical elements with the mer people. They too add their own effects to add to the film's underwater immersion. On top of having a different color for their fins, the way they swim around like natural divers and how their hair and aquatic appendages flow freely adds that awareness that the physics of water is also applied here. And the bigger they are, the more noticeable that they can be, like with Ariel's hair and Ursula's tentacles.
Poor souls with no one else to turn to.
As for the backgrounds, they are beautifully painted and present the distinct difference between land and sea. Atlantica and its surroundings have the architectural elegance of a kingdom, but have this feel that it was naturally crafted with the resources found in the sea. And when going out of the water at Eric's place, His castle has a more traditional nautical theme to reflect how it is beside the ocean, along with having a strong color palette of its own and the use of early CG to help create some moving shots with some large areas like Eric's ship. But then there's something that's not often discussed about this movie. It's shockingly intense! And I say shockingly because the action scenes make the film go from 0 to 100 in a second. Right when it begins, the pacing goes fast, especially with the snappy editing, and the danger is quickly elevated where it puts the characters in a position where they have to narrowly escape death. They frequently add this jolt of excitement and present how Ariel's curiosity comes with some major risks, like when confronting a shark, when a storm took down Eric's ship, and during the epic climax when Ursula gets to be at her most powerful. I know I went into a lot of the film's underwater aspect. I mean, it's one of the movie's best assets along with how it stands out as a Disney film. There's just so much to get into that makes it work. But even when looking into the more traditional components of the animation, they are also masterfully crafted. This is especially the case with the character animation. There are the more comical ones like Sebastian, Flounder, and Scuttle that are more playful with their species, and then there are the humans and human-like characters who are more realistic in their movements, but they put on some strong performances that show off their personalities. I'll even say that the best example is Ariel after she swapped her voice to become human. To compensate her sudden inability to speak, supervising animators Glenn Keane and Mark Henn made her personality a lot more dynamic and expressive through her movements, where she presents her joy and amazement of her new life on land that still maintains the familiarity of who she is.
It's not often that we have such a lovely dinner guest, eh, Eric?
There was already a high standard for the team to match what the old masters have done with the classics in order to have this look like a true Disney picture. But with the addition of some innovative techniques to present its aquatic setting, it was the update that the public needed at the time to remember what makes Disney's animation so magical. The characters. This is a very interesting case because technically, the cast of The Little Mermaid is filled with what is now considered to be tiresome tropes. You have the girl who wants to experience more than what she has in her regular life, the overprotective father, the dreamy love interest who is also looking for his destiny, the deal-making villain, and a handful of comic reliefs. There's been a lot of movies, especially animated films, that include those archetypes and end up taking away some of their originality or any value to remember them by. However, I don't think I could say the same about The Little Mermaid because this movie is what popularized those tropes. Sure, it's not the first to create those types, but this is the one that made them work so well in a story for an animated feature. The reason why there have been many movies afterwards that try to replicate those tropes is because they hope that they could emulate the same success that The Little Mermaid had. But what most of them lack, however, is the storytelling that makes their characters feel important, along with a strong personality to make a real impact with who they are.
She may be the key to Triton's undoing.
To start this off, let's look at the Little Mermaid herself, Ariel. Right from the beginning, she always has an interest in the human world and how it's so different from the life of a mermaid, especially when her discoveries contrast her father's viewpoint. But once she first sees Eric, her intrigue evolved into a new purpose to be on land so that she could live with him. Ultimately, what Ariel is pursuing is not a man, but a better life for herself so that she could be happy. And that is why Ariel resonates with so many people because of how passionate she is and not afraid to take action to leave her safe home in favor of finding greater happiness.
Why, Eric, run away with you? This is all so sudden.
And speaking of her father, King Triton is quite strict when it comes to leaving the water and interacting with humans. He has a clear hatred for them, but what shows even more is his love for Ariel. Even at his most furious, he just wants to protect his daughter, especially with how he is proud of her beauty and singing abilities. He can be tough, but that's because he's still learning about the balance of prioritizing her safety and her happiness.
You give them an inch, they swim all over you.
Do you think I was too hard on her?
Then you have Eric, who is unfortunately underused, and his role isn't anything bigger than being the male love interest who is looking for the girl of his dreams, even if he's surrounded by his own people who look after him, like Grimsby and his dog Max.
Gee, Grim. It's really something.
As for Ariel's friends, they mainly play as the film's comic reliefs, including Flounder, her more cautious best buddy, Sebastian, the royal advisor and composer who has to keep an eye on her, and Scuttle, Ariel's quote-unquote human expert who's actually not that bright. Like I said before, I consider the humor to be okay, so their roles are okay as well by supplying some cute moments. Although Sebastian does earn extra credit for giving the film a couple of musical numbers.
Jeez, Mom, I'm surrounded by amateurs. You want something done, you've got to do it yourself.
And then there is Ursula, the sea witch who makes the deal with Ariel to trade her voice for some human legs. She is a top-tier Disney villain with her manipulative personality that has a touch of sass, where she knows how to get what she wants from people, but also embraces her evilness and can get bombastic at times. And all that is executed so well thanks to the amazing performance by Pat Carroll, who knew how to deliver that balance between being playful and threatening to create an unforgettable villain.
But if he doesn't, you turn back into a mermaid, and you belong to me.
No.
Maybe these are not the most complex characters that have a deep understanding of life. However, they are the ones who set a new standard for the following generation of movies, especially with how they powerfully portray their personalities. There are many who try to be like the characters of The Little Mermaid, but none could ever duplicate what makes them so beloved. The songs. Out of all the elements of The Little Mermaid, the one that is the most revolutionary is the music. On top of being the first Disney film to have Alan Menken working on the score and the songs, alongside him was the late legendary lyricist Howard Ashman. And together, they approached this not like any regular movie musical, but like a Broadway production, to make the songs the movie's most memorable moments and have them be as extravagant as they could. At the same time, the numbers are created to summarize who these characters are, or a certain point to complete the immersion of the experience and to have the audience follow the story with these songs. It even begins by setting the film's tone with Fathoms Below, which introduces the human side that is a lot like our world before going in the ocean with the mermaids.
Look up, Madam Mermaid, be waiting for you in mysterious fathoms below.
Isn't this great?
Then there is Ariel's song, Part of Your World, which is where she is emotionally explaining why she has a fascination with the humans instead of staying in the ocean with her family.
Wandering free, wish I could be part of that world.
Then Sebastian comes in with Under the Sea, a more upbeat tune that is made to convince Ariel to change her mind and that the ocean is better to live in than on land. And all the fish do their best to portray it as fun as possible.
Little clown here, know how to jam here under the sea.
Then there is Poor Unfortunate Soul, Ursula's sinister song where she shows off her ability to trick Ariel into signing the contract while also hinting her evil intentions behind it.
Come on, you poor unfortunate soul! Go ahead, make your choice.
You then get a bonus song with Les Poissons, which presents another comic relief, Chef Louis, with how much he sadistically enjoys cooking fish. It's also a great example of Ashman's masterful lyric skills, because who else could think of a rhyme like Les Poissons, Les Poissons. And finally, there is Kiss the Girl, a romantic ballad to set the mood for Ariel and Eric so that she could accomplish her deal.
Don't be scared, you gotta move your head, go on and kiss the girl.
With each number, they build up a momentum that makes the songs bigger and become more exciting. And just when you think it's done, some of them have a reprise to go one step ahead to give the song an extra and more grand conclusion to tie it all together.
Part of your world.
But what's also great about them is how they are able to be their own single. They connect seamlessly to the movie, but they can also work independently so that they can be enjoyed for the individual mood that they set, as well as for the listener to personally connect with the moment, like with Part of Your World when they feel like Ariel with wanting something more in their lives, or Under the Sea when they want to have some aquatic-style fun, or Poor Unfortunate Soul, although I'd be scared if you vibe with Ursula and how she makes her deals.
Flotsam jetsam, now I've got her, boys. The boss is on a roll.
There have been so many unforgettable songs in Disney's history, but it doesn't always happen when a movie can have all of them come out as unforgettable hits. As bold of a take this may be, but thanks to the amazing talent of Menken and Ashman, the movie features one of Disney's greatest soundtracks. There is a lot to say about what makes this film great, but it speaks for itself how this is the movie that started the Disney Renaissance. The Little Mermaid is not only a beautiful animated musical, but it was also the movie that changed the game for animation. The one that set a new standard for the medium to become more than just simple family films and prove to audiences that they have what it takes to be major motion picture events. It combines elements both old and new so that it could be as much of a Disney classic like the ones produced by Walt himself, while also innovating their techniques to deliver an experience unlike anything they've done before. With an emotionally engaging story, amazing animation, unforgettable characters, and some of the best music from the studio, they all work together so well to form one of Disney's most iconic movies. Would I consider this to be one of their greatest films? Probably not, but I completely understand why this feature is so beloved over the decades. With the way that it made a powerful and long-lasting impact in pop culture, I consider this to be a must-watch. At the very least, there will be at least one thing for the film that you will love, if not the entire thing. And if you love this review, then give this a like and come subscribe to my channel. You could be a part of my world as we discover more treasures in animation just waiting to be found. The legacy that it left is absolutely admirable, and I can see how it was able to achieve that on its own merits. And that is why I give this the Animat seal of approval. It took the studio several years after Walt passed away, but it was thanks to a mermaid that they were able to find their voice. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Matt Shoughton, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he got to ask me to review The Little Mermaid. And there is one little thing that I will confess about The Little Mermaid is that I did go through this journey over the years in order to go and find this newfound appreciation for the movie. Because prior to all this, even prior to making videos, I just thought that with The Little Mermaid, like when I would go and watch it, or I would see a lot of the different experiences at the Disney parks related to the movie, I would think to myself that, you know what, it's cute, it's fine, it's all right, but it's never really been among my favorites in terms of Disney movies. But then suddenly, especially with my videos, I would end up finding myself rewatching the movie again and again and for a variety of reasons, of course. But it's especially with the videos where each time I would go and think about the movie and discuss about it, whether it be with some of my other reviews, like for the sequel or for the prequel or for the 2023 remake, or especially with Animation Look Back, Walt Disney Animation Studios, both the original and Plus, where I would go and discuss about the history of making it. And now finally, with this review in particular, I now fully understand about the cultural impact of The Little Mermaid, about why is it The Little Mermaid is such a major game changer for both movies and for animation. And especially with this review, I start to understand more about why is it that this is the one that really initiated the Disney Renaissance, and especially during the 1990s decade, where the grand majority of animated films that did come out were Broadway-style musicals, because a lot of them really wanted to be like The Little Mermaid, that many people tried to go and replicate that same success, but not many have actually managed to go and do so. It's just through watching it, especially when discovering that there are these things that nowadays are considered tropes, that The Little Mermaid was actually the one that really did set the standard, that there are these characters and there are these movies that really want to try to be like The Little Mermaid and Ariel and Ursula and all that kind of stuff, but they never really managed to go and have that same impact as The Little Mermaid, the kind that has that same power that people would feel when they would watch The Little Mermaid. And that is why now I do fully understand of its cultural impact, of why is it that it's been so beloved and still beloved for so many decades. So overall, this has been honestly great. Not just because I get to go and talk about a great movie, but also to get more of an understanding of the importance of The Little Mermaid. All right, so with that said, it is now time that we shall go and check out what will be the next review in the animation hat. Yes, we're going to go and pick what the next review shall be. So before I go and actually do so, I would like to go and say that if you would like to be like Matt Shoughton and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, so let's see what the next review is going to be. So let's see, we're just going to go and if I can manage to pick one. All right, okay, there we go. We got one selected. So the next review shall be... Okay. This, I think, is going to be an interesting one. This is honestly, I have never seen it in a long time. I remember checking it out as a kid, and this is actually based on one of my favorite animated shows that I would regularly watch. And then they would have this like TV movie, and honestly, it was actually pretty cool. So, you know what? Okay. You know, I think this would make a very interesting discussion. So let's actually go and see across the generations. And, well, you know, with how long it's been since its release, we will go and discuss with many different generations as they will go and experience this little trip as we go inside this beloved laboratory, or at least the different varieties of laboratories over the years.
Yes! Thank you.